Good afternoon, everybody. This is Steve with Real Progressives. Today, we're going to talk about the Hurricane Harvey and the insurance situation, the national insurance program that is underwater. Our national insurance for flood victims and natural disasters is already some $30 billion in the hole. It's already drowning in debt, in private debt, in debt that it cannot pay back. The only way that something like this can ever be solved is through sovereign spending. The only way something like this can ever be solved is through our federal government stepping up and doing what this channel, this show, this organization, Real Progressives alone, has spoken to since the beginning. It is time, because lives, I've been telling you, lives are on the line. People are dying. And now you get a first-hand view of what it's like when you allow private interests like an insurance scam, quite frankly, to continue raking in money while people are literally destitute with no prayer in hell of ever being solvent again. No chance in hell of ever being able to rebound without filing bankruptcy and everything else. And even then, their entire life has been flushed away in Hurricane Harvey. Now, there's going to be more hurricanes and there's going to be more natural disasters that come through the way. At some point, you're going to have to realize that dollars, paper dollars, don't come from the ground. They don't come from gold. They don't come from oil. They come from our national government, our federal government. When it says to spend, it spends. But here they are, once again, allowing people to suffer. Do you think right now alone, they're saying some $30 billion in damages have occurred as a result of Harvey, and that the national insurance system is in no way, shape, or form capable of supporting the payouts and the rebuilding efforts that would need to come through? Are we going to call it a stimulus package when the government steps in? Or are we going to realize once and for all that our government needs to step in at the beginning, not when it's a disaster? Are we going to let the people that sit there and negate this stuff and talk smack about it and sit there and call it a cult? Are we going to allow them to continue murdering people? Are we going to allow people to suffer and die and lose all and have no hope because people don't want to realize that our federal government is completely able to solve this problem? Donald Trump throwing $1 million at a $30 billion problem doesn't even scratch the tip of the whitehead off. It doesn't do anything. It's like pissing in the ocean. When you realize that the only way that this stuff will be solved is for us to stop lying about debt and deficits and to stop lying about taxes paying for spending. So I'll modify. I want to talk about this real quick because it's very, very important. Extremely important. We at Real Progressives have tried to create bumper sticker sayings because most people don't have 5 hours a day to invest in reading detailed fractions and equations and detailed white papers from PhDs that have been peer-reviewed at Levy Institute. And they don't have the time or the patience to dig in deeper into all these massive PhD-level writings of these economists that have done the work to show us what we're saying is true. Those of us who painstakingly read those things have tried to synthesize it down to where it's accessible to regular human beings. Now, because we are abstract thinkers here at Real Progressives, and we're not linear, that's oversimplifying the situation. He's saying it doesn't fund spending. Well, it doesn't. Taxes are deleted. But what taxes do? Taxes are an IOU. They are an IOU that makes us do things. They create buyers and sellers, as Warren Mosler would say. But the reality is that your taxes are not recycled and used to pay for things. That's not how it works. We are not operationally constrained to taxes. That's it. That's it. It's simple. It's simple. So let me explain something else to you, because it's so important. While people are suffering in Harvey and idiot savants are running around talking about semantic games, while people are literally destitute, you can turn on your TV and see that I'm not making this up. You can go down to Houston and look and see to know that I'm not making this up. This is not something I've made up. This is facts. And now people are suffering for it. So here's the deal. When you look and you realize that taxation is a means of maintaining the value of the dollar, when you look and you realize that taxation is the government's way of clearing room to provision itself, when you realize that taxation is a way to curb behaviors we don't like, we call that Pigovian taxes, when you realize at the end of the day that you never wanted to know about the operational realities of how dollars were created and dollars were spent, and you just always believed the narrative that said we're broke, we're dying, we need to balance the budget and all that stuff. When you were stuck in that paradigm, there would be no hope for the people that are suffering from Harvey. There would be no hope whatsoever. We have tried to provide hope, and we were hoping that it wouldn't require a natural disaster to prove our point. But there are people that are trying to make it so that you've got to know, oh, well, he's lying. He's making it too simple. It's not true. Fuck you. I'm here to make it so that every human being, whether they have 20 million hours to invest or only a couple, maybe they don't even have a couple. Maybe I get 30 seconds to explain this before someone goes, oh, on to the next thing about the orange man. Okay? Maybe that's all I get is this little teeny window to talk to people. I am going to make it as simple as I possibly can. The United States government is not operationally restricted or in any way, shape, or form constrained by taxation to spend. In no way, shape, or form. Tim Canova came out and said it the other night as well. And it was about this specific issue. So for the people that said this is a cult, you really are maybe the worst person on the planet. There is no one that equals you. No one. And for those people bad-mouthing people trying to save lives, you'll have to go to bed at night knowing that the blood of those suffering are on your hands. I'd like to blame the oligarchs. I'd like to point at the plutocrats. I'd like to point at the corrupt politicians, but I can't, because when people are sitting there fighting day in and day out to prevent a situation like what we're about to come into with this Harvey crap, and they sit there and they sweep the legs out of those fighting tooth and nail who have done the homework, you know you're in the company of true murderers, killers, lethal in every sense of the word. Now, when I say we're not operationally constrained to only tax revenue, guess what that means? There are political constraints. Well, what is a political constraint? In some states around the country, it is illegal to give a blowjob. Did you know that? It is literally illegal to give a blowjob. Now, let me ask you the question. Do you think people still get and give blowjobs in those states? Do you think that it's operationally not possible for them people to receive oral sex in those states where it's illegal? No? Okay. So it is not operationally constrained. We can absolutely do it. But it's a rule or a law brought in by some weirdo from the 1900s that didn't like the idea of people getting busy. Now think about marijuana laws. Back in the day, they didn't like the idea of white women dancing with the black men. So they made marijuana illegal because they thought it made the girls all randy for the black men. Racism was at the core of that law, that rule. So that right there is not operationally constrained. White women and white men have been dating black women and black men since the dawn of time. Nobody's thought twice about it until some racists decided to make it about marijuana. So they made marijuana illegal. And then the DuPont friends who didn't like the hemp taking their frigging business went ahead and weighed in on it too. So do you think that we are operationally constrained from using marijuana? Or do you think that there is a law based in some racist motherfucker's mind that makes it so marijuana is illegal? Tula what? This is what I'm saying. When I tell you taxes don't fund spending, I am literally telling you straight dope. They do not fund spending. Operationally, we can spend till the cows come home. But politically, because they want us starving, neoliberalism demands suffering. So when somebody says, well, actually, see if I can do the, actually, taxes do kind of fund spending. Fuck you. They do not, murderer. So what we're talking about here is Harvey. And we're looking down there and we're seeing homes decimated. We're seeing people homeless. We're seeing people without food, without any kind of shelter at all. And this is in our own backyards. This happens in India all the time when the monsoon season comes through. It happens in all sorts of places where the rainforests are. It happens all around the world where there's natural disasters. Think about the tsunami that went through Thailand. Think about all the natural disasters. There is always money, and you're not going to donate your way to saving these lives. You might kick in a few t-shirts somehow or another, or maybe some floatable boats, or maybe some cell phones or something. But the reality is, the rebuilding effort is a government responsibility. They have a 14th Amendment requirement for the general welfare. And our national resources, our US dollar, is there to take care of this. The insurance industry is about to go boom. It doesn't have enough funds to do it on its own. Is somebody going to say, well, this is just propping up capitalism. We need socialism. I want to save some lives at Harvey, fool. Sorry. That's just the way it is, sorry. Lives first, your pet things second. It's not propping up capitalism, it's saving lives. And when you put that whole equation together, your precious feelings will stop being so hurt by little Steve Grumbine, who's sitting there adamant as hell fighting for the people who are suffering. And my rage and my anger comes from understanding that rage, that suffering. Comes from understanding what it's like to worry when they're going to foreclose on your home. It comes from knowing that you have no idea where your next meal's coming from. It comes from knowing I don't have a car to get to and from a job. In this case, it comes from seeing people both wealthy and poor, gay, straight, black, white, Hispanic, you name it, all suffering massively. And they're wondering how they're going to pay for it. Can you imagine that? They're wondering how they are going to pay for it. If this doesn't register, if you're more offended that I am angry and raged and ready to fight for this, if that bothers you, you've got a real serious problem of your own. Don't project your own issues onto me. That is your problem. As for me, and most of you, thank God, save for a few lowlives, you get this and you understand these people need our federal government to step in with a big thing. There shouldn't even be a question. It should not be an issue of, well, we don't like that part of town. We're not going to go ahead and fund them. Too many of them damn whoever's. You better step up and learn, because you can't donate your way out of this. And you can't cut the legs out from under people fighting for this and expect to retain any credibility. And your little semantic games are no longer funny anymore. They are now costing people lives because activists could be uniting to make this happen. Instead, because of a selfish streak, a narcissistic streak, you've decided to try to make this a pissing contest about what the operational realities are. My friends, you need to know this. You can go as deep as you want down the rabbit hole, but the reality is our nation isn't broke. It can afford anything it needs to right now. And those people's lives are non-negotiable. The rebuilding of Houston and other disaster areas in the United States should not be in question. It should just be done. There should be no hand-wringing. There should be no negotiations. There should be no questions about personal responsibility or bad choices or anything else like that. It should just be done. I'm Steve Grumbine with Real Progressives. Have a good day.